Couldn't shoot. Come on, no help here. Okay, somebody drive to the basket. Do something. We can't make anything. There you go, spinning. Make it now. All right, Josh.
Yes, she can. Now's the time. Anytime now is good. Go, Jordan. Again, you want? Oh, Jordan.
All right, Jordan. Come on, you guys. All right, Jordan. Okay, watch the clock. Come on, come on, come on, come on.
29. Another point. Yeah, really. Nice.
Somebody's got to shoot here.
Good point.
Shoot.
Somebody. Get in there. Do something.
It's called bounce pass.
Come on, Mustangs. There you go, Jack.
Who's covering that? Who? Good drive.
That's good. Now I can run the rest of the pieces. Using my miter box, I can miter all the corners of the solid oak that surrounds the field of the top. I'll just dry fit all the pieces together and then glue it up. I'm not using any mechanical fasteners to hold these pieces on, just glue. Okay, now I'll just set this aside to dry. Let me show you how the back meets the top. There's a 3/8" rabbet in the solid oak piece that receives the plywood. Over here on the workbench, I have a top that I glued up when I made the prototype. I milled the rabbet along the back edge using my router with the 3/8" rabbeting bit. Now, I didn't want the rabbet to show through the end, so I stopped short of the miter. Now I just want to finish cleaning it up with a chisel. Well, now I'm ready to do a little assembly of the draw case. I've put glue in the lower dado, and in that goes a plywood bottom. And this is just fur, because after all, you're not going to see it. I'll clamp it and nail it. I'm using a 4-penny finish nail, and by toe-nailing it from both sides of the shelf, you get an incredibly strong joint. Now we'll secure the other side. Now this groove in the solid oak of the ends of the top fits over the tongues at the top of the side panels. No fasteners here. Now we'll put the back on and secure it in place with some brads. These solid oak strips are next, and they cover the front edge of the plywood, really dressing it up. So far, both the door case and the draw case are assembled the same way. There are a couple additional pieces. Both will get a toe kickboard. Both will get a little cleat underneath the countertop. The draw case, however, gets 2 additional pieces to separate the draw cavities. All these pieces are joined to the sides with biscuits. Here on the side of the draw case, I've laid out for those rails that separate the draw cavities. It's always difficult to just hold a biscuit joiner on the line steady. So I find it helpful to just clamp a scrap of wood right on the line. Then the biscuit joiner has a place to sit. Using my biscuit joiner, I've made a modified biscuit slot. I've actually extended it so it comes through the edge of the piece. And what that's for is so that I can slip it over the biscuits that are in the case. I'd never be able to spread the sides far enough to pop it in. Now that I know it fits okay, I'm going to take it apart and glue it up. The toe kickboard is joined to the plywood with some biscuits. And I also made a modified slot both in the side and in the board so that I could just slip a biscuit up from the bottom. I'll drive that in and clamp it up. While the base unit's dry, let's build the bookcase. This is the bottom shelf that fits into the dado. I'm just using glue and nails to fasten it together. Here's the top of the bookcase. Now this plywood back is definitely going to show, so I'm using a nice piece of 1/4" oak veneer plywood. In order for these oak bands to fit properly, I need to remove a little bit of the tongue on the top shelf and on the lower shelf. What I really like about this tongue and groove system for the oak banding is that I get a very strong joint and no need for fasteners. But the system does involve a lot of clamps. For the last few minutes, I've been cutting the pieces of oak which go around the plywood blanks for the draw fronts. And it's done pretty much the same way I did the countertops. I find it easier with these draw fronts to glue up all 3 fronts in one session. That way I use fewer clamps. Let me show you the draw box. It's made from 1/2-inch cabinet grade plywood for the sides, the back, and the front. The bottom is a piece of 1/4-inch plywood. The sides are joined to the front with dovetail joints. Now over here I'm going to clamp one of the side pieces in my dovetail jig. I've adjusted the fingers for the dovetail layout that I want. Now using my router, which is equipped with a collar and a dovetailing bit, I just follow the fingers of the jig and I'll get perfect dovetails every time. Now I just flip the fingers of my jig over and set it for the thickness of my stock. With a draw front mounted in the top of the jig, I'm now ready to cut the pins. And when it comes to assembly, a little bit of glue and some gentle persuasion. That's good. The back piece slips into some dados that I cut at the table saw earlier. These little brads will hold it all together. The 1/4-inch plywood bottom slips into some grooves that I milled earlier. Now I'm just going to check it for square by measuring the diagonals. Okay, everything is fine. Now we'll just nail it along the back edge with some brads. And note that I'm not using glue here. That's how we make the draw boxes. The draw rides on tracks. This is the part of the track that goes on the draw bottom. This is the corresponding track that gets fastened to the side of the draw case. Here I'm drilling holes in the draw front for the handle. I find it's easier to install the draw fronts with the draw boxes installed in the case. I just use a shim as a spacer, align the draw front side to side, and use some screws through the holes that I just drilled to attach it. Now I'll remove the draws and attach them from the inside permanently. I've just drilled a 35mm flat bottom hole in one of my doors, and that's to receive this European hinge, which will be concealed. You'll note that the edge of the door has an oak band just like the drawer fronts. With the corresponding half of the hinge attached to the side of the base unit, I can now install the door. And that's just a matter of sliding it onto the hinge and tightening down the screw. You might have noticed that I've drilled a series of holes down the front edge of the cabinet and at the back edge. And that's for these clips that will ultimately support the shelves. Now, there's any number of ways to drill the holes for those little clips. But this is a tip that I picked up from our friends at Woodsmith magazine. Just take a piece of ordinary pegboard. It has holes that are uniformly spaced about 1 inch apart. I've set mine up so that I can drill holes either 1.5 inches from the edge or 2 inches from the edge. But I made a couple more modifications. I took a Forstner bit and made a slight recess at each hole so that my drilling device would fit into it. This is known as a VIX bit. This part, the silver part, is a centering device. The black part is the drill bit. After drilling the first hole, I put in a dowel, slip the jig on, and just continue up the line. Now, if you have a long run of holes, all you have to do is reposition the dowel, drop the jig back on, and just continue. All 3 shelves are made exactly the same way. A piece of 3/4 inch plywood and an oak edge. I've rabbited out a piece of 1 inch oak so that the shelf will just fit into it. Not only provides a decorative edge, but it adds a lot of strength to the shelf to keep it from sagging. All right. Now a couple hours of finished sanding. I'll dust it off and we'll move it into the finishing room. The challenge for the finish here is to end up with something that's so tough and durable that even a student couldn't destroy it. So what I've chosen is to start out with a coat of sanding sealer. After that's dry, I'll give it a light sanding and put on at least 2 coats of a tough gloss polyurethane. Well, I think these storage units turned out very well. And they can grow up with the child from grade school right through college. Now, next time, another project for the student, a student's desk, made with high-pressure laminate for durability, oak for an accent of trim, and easy sliding drawers. I'll show you how to build it next time right here on the New Yankee Workshop.
The New Yankee Workshop.
That pine that I had hanging around the shop. I'll show you how to make this one and several other ones next right here on the New Yankee Workshop.
The New Yankee Workshop features the craftsmanship of Norm Abram and is made possible by Vermont.
Well, today we're at the old Schwarm Mill in Arlington, Massachusetts. Since 1864, this mill has produced picture frames, and they're most famous for their beautiful oval frames. Thanks to a preservation trust, this mill is still in operation, and you can buy a frame even today. Let's go inside. When you step into the office, it's like stepping back to 1860. On the wall, a rack with all different profiles of moldings that are available. Some of these date back over 100 years. Oh, and look at this. Mr. Schwarm's old roll-top desk with this wonderful old light hanging over it. And in the corner, his safe. Now, there are various picture frames on the wall, but the ones that they're most famous for are the oval frames. To make oval frames, you need 4 quadrants, and the whole process starts out here. There's a rack with lumber, and then patterns for just about every size oval you can think of. But if they don't have the oval that you want, they can lay one out using this device. Once the layout has been done on the raw material, it's brought over to the bandsaw to be roughed out. And this is quite a bandsaw. I'd love to have one of these at the New Yankee Workshop with a 36-inch throat. Now, after the piece has been roughed, it's brought to a special tool for making ovals, a wooden frame that supports a wooden table and a sliding portion. The pieces of the frame are mounted with various stops, and then the table is pushed to trim it in exactly the right place. Once it's trimmed, the end joints are finger jointed and then glued together. Once the glue is dried, it's brought over to the turner, Dave Graff. Hi, Dave.
Hi, Norm.
Show me how this works.
Sure. You can see that we've screwed the raw frame onto the faceplate of this elliptical lathe, and we have a tool rest right here. That's at exactly the right height, so that when you put your cutting tool here, you can cut an ellipse into your frame.
Now I see that you still have the old pulleys and belts to drive this equipment.
We sure
I
do.
guess way back in history it was probably water driven, is that
That's right. It was water driven, and for a while it was driven by a steam engine as well.
Okay, well, let's see it work.
All right. Let me slide this pulley over onto the drive. There we go.
Wow, that looks scary. It's swinging way almost out of whack.
That's
Crazy.
right. On this side it is way out of whack, so to speak, but over here where the tool rest is, you can actually cut the shape into it, and your tool is cutting an ellipse into this frame as you hold it still. So that's how it works. Want to give it a shot?
Sure.
Okay.
Well, it would take a little practice, but I think I could get it.
I'm sure you could.
Thanks, Dave.
You're welcome.
Of course, you can order the frames in a variety of finishes, but over here, Andriana Rashman is applying gold leaf. I see you have a packet of thin
Right.
sheets of gold.
This is 22 karat gold leaf.
Now
And we
you-
cut it with a knife,
Okay.
homemade tip. And we need static
So you
on
rub
the
it on your
tip.
face, okay?
Right. And we pick up the gold. It
Right.
sticks very
So it
nicely.
doesn't turn into a ball. It stays nice and flat.
Right,
And you're setting it on a wet surface on the frame.
right. This is alcohol and water to make the clays activate and make it stick.
Wow. Now, this is one of just many steps that you'll have to perform to get this frame totally gold leafed. But when
Right.
it's finished, it's going to look like this one, which is beautiful. And, of course, you can still order frames like this from the mill, right?
Right,
But we have to wait a little while. Be patient.
right. That's all.
Now, next time you're in Arlington, Massachusetts, whether or not you need an oval frame, you must stop by the Old Schwarm Mill. It's a woodworker's paradise. Now, here's my attempt at building some picture frames. I've tried several different versions, and I'll show you what I've made. I haven't set any glass in these yet because I want to finish the wood, but this particular frame is a shadow box. It's very deep, and it works well with a portrait picture like this. This is a menu from my favorite restaurant in London. I've surrounded it with mat board and a very small frame, which seems to work well. This is a piece of beveled mirrored glass, and I made a fluted frame out of oak to surround it. And here's a picture of an old house that I'm particularly fond of, and I've surrounded it with some mat board in an old-time frame. Now, after making these first few frames, I must say I have a lot more respect for people in the picture framing business. Assembling the wood frame is the easy part, but picking the right frame and the right mat board for the picture, now that's art, and I'm not really an artist. Now, choosing wood for the various frames, I first went to my lumber rack and pulled out some stock moldings that I have here. This is a crown molding. This is a cornice molding. And what I discovered quickly was that there's not enough wood, and there's no rabbet to support the picture itself. However, I did find one molding that you can buy at the home center that will work. This is actually a picture molding that's usually placed on the wall up high. You can place a hook around this round portion and hang your pictures. I thought that if I add a piece of wood to the back side, it will give me a rabbet. It's actually quite a nice profile for a picture frame. Now, this piece of wood here was actually part of a molding that I bought at the home center. It's sold as a decorative molding, and this is not carved, it's actually pressed in place. It comes in 8-foot lengths, and it already has a rabbet in it, which makes it good for making picture frames, like the one I used around this old house picture. Now, I have one more picture I want to frame with that molding. It's this one right here. It's a picture of some friends of mine in their younger day. But before I cut any wood, I want to cut the mat board. I picked up my mat board at an office supply store, and it turns out that there's an unlimited selection of colors and textures, but it seems that the basic whites work the best. So I'm going to use this one right here for our photograph, and the first thing I want to do is set the overall size of the mat. Now I want to cover this white border on the photograph with at least 2 inches of mat, and then I want to allow another ½ inch to fit into the rabbit. So that's what I'll use at the side, and I think the same at the top. But at the bottom, picture framers say we should make that a little bit wider. So I'm going to make the bottom 2 3/4 inches. A good sharp utility knife, sometimes called a mat knife, is the best tool for making the overall cut. With the window laid out on the back of the mat board, I'm ready to cut it. I don't want to make the cut perpendicular because that'll leave a shadow on the artwork. I want to bevel it back. And to do that, I'm going to use a mat cutting tool. It has a very sharp blade, which I can pivot down into the work. How I set it up is I take my straight edge and place it about 1/8 inch away from the line, bring the mat cutter to one end and against the straight edge, and plunge it down so it just hits the line to get it set up on this end. And I bring it to this end and check it. And then, by securely holding the straight edge with my left hand, I come back to the beginning, plunge it down so that the little indicator mark on the tool meets the intersection, glide it along the straight edge. Then I want to overshoot this side by about 1/8 inch. Okay, well that works great. Now with the mat board cut, we have the overall dimensions to start making the frame. Now I want to show you a foolproof method for calculating the lengths of the frame pieces. Take an actual piece of the molding and measure the width, not including the rabbet. So in this case, 1 3/16 inches. Double that measurement because there's a piece on each side of the frame for a total of 2 3/8. Hold the 2 3/8 measurement right at the edge of the mat, come down to the other end, and read what you have. So I have 20 13/16. I want to add a 16th for a little extra free play for a total of 20 7/8 for the long sides of the frame. I use the same method to calculate the short sides. Now my power miter box does a real good job cutting the 45-degree angle cuts, and that would probably be good enough in most situations. But here at the workshop, I have the luxury of owning one of these. It's a trimmer. It has 2 very sharp blades that work like a guillotine. Of course, I do have to add a little extra to the length when I make the cut at the miter box to account for this trim. But believe me, that is a perfect 45-degree angle. Here's a tip. To ensure that the joints are going to fit perfectly, it's absolutely essential that opposite sides of the frame are cut to exactly the same length. To join the corners of the frame, I'm using a yellow carpenter's glue. And to secure the corner while the glue dries, I'm going to use this spring clamp. It's actually a tool that I slip on one of these springs. And then I spread it open, bring it over the corner. It'll dig into the wood and squeeze the joint together while it dries. But while this frame dries, I'll show you how I made the molding for this frame. It's a half round on the front and rabbeted on the back. To make that, I'm going to be using my router shaper. And before we use any power tools, I want to take a moment to talk about shop safety. Be sure to read, understand, and follow all the safety rules that come with your power tools. Knowing how to use your power tools properly will greatly reduce the risk of personal injury. And remember this, there is no